4.6, correct. So the first submission there, submitter 34 and submission point 34.6. You'll note throughout the rest of economic development there were a number of submissions that made that same point. So it's covered off in the first one, and then we've just throughout the rest of that document said refer to submission 34.6, and that's regarding the development of a new eyesight council shared service hub in Turangi.
You'll be aware that there was significant investment in the eyesight this last financial year with the volcanic centre going in there as well, which has been a huge success. We're beginning to get some good numbers going through there at the moment. There was some conversation some time ago about building a new eyesight, but I think our advice has been there's been significant investment. Let's just see how it goes, and then we need to plan Turangi on a more strategic basis.
Oh, thank you, Worship. Just in regard to this particular item, yeah, I'm sure you guys have all read with your own eyes that there's a repeat on this particular submission. But can I just seek clarity? So originally, or some time ago, there were some indications about the fact that the temporary, how do you phrase it? Some stuff would be done with the existing eyesight to bring it up to standard, and also to accommodate the volcanic activity centre, but on the basis that it was sort of a bit of a piecemeal offering whilst a more robust plan was developed. So I think this is what that specifically talks to. So other than the fact that yes, there has been an investment and that sort of thing, how do we indicate that we are, I guess, providing for some resources to look at that better option? So I mean, in here it's talking about within the next LTP, but can we make any sort of more firm commitments around that?
So are you talking financial commitment here, or are you talking thought commitment? Because that's you know, obviously the latter is slightly different, and that's something that I think we talked to the board about having a bit of a planning session over the next couple of months around, and I think that's probably the forum for that conversation, if that's a thought, and then planning for the next long-term plan. I think what you need is some facts there as well, in terms of what does that investment actually mean and what you're actually trying to achieve from that investment. So I think my advice to you is probably the board sit down, give us some direction as to where you want to head with this. We can provide some facts around what's going on there. But also I think it needs to be around the bigger strategic view around Turangi as a whole and what you're actually trying to achieve.
And we're doing that work. We're doing that work through the revisiting of the TED study that we're engaging with the community now as well. So the priority projects that will fall out of that will indicate which way we go.
So the hub they're talking about, is that like a hub that we've got here, or are they talking council offices, or what are they? I didn't hear any of this.
Service centre and eyesight and the volcanic activity centre.
So they're wanting to shift the service centre? Yeah. In the submission?
Yeah.
Okay. So none of the submitters talked to that down there either. Obviously,
Zane did in his submission, so it was all part of that same one. So they didn't get any detail, but that's what they're saying is there was a number of projects that have been repeated for Turangi in those submissions, and if you take them as a package, this was the one for eyesight, which they were saying big landmark buildings, see it from the highway, makes you want to stop, including things yet to be determined, but bus stops, toilets, eyesights, volcanic activity centres, council buildings. I guess what we're saying is, in terms of the eyesight, as John said, we've really invested in it, quite to a considerable amount, and it's working relatively well. There's actually the last stage still to come, which is the eyesight, and which is, I understand, Dylan, about to go up pretty soon. and so we've invested in that, and we've invested in the office, the doc TDC office. So our suggestion is we just tie ho on that, but the other stuff is part of the submission, because we can't do it all either. So then let's pick off other parts of that general submission which do make another big impact, and there was a discussion about the event centre gym, there was a discussion about the toilets and things like that. So what else can we do to show some love immediately? But this one, to us, given the investment you've made, just seems like one that you might want to push off a little bit.
Okay.
Do we have to put some money towards planning or planning? Like, if we're going to plan the. No.
I think my advice is I think we need to do some proper planning. As soon as you put a figure in there, it becomes the figure.
No, a figure just to do the planning. Like, are you going to do a feasibility plan or something?
I think in terms of the eyesight, I think it's a discussion. I think it's about.
Oh, I was thinking of all the stuff in Tūrangi that they're talking
So
about.
I think let's pick them off one by one. So definitely when we get to, so for the eyesight, I think it's about opposite having a discussion with the board and ultimately council about what that is, what the priority is, where it goes. In terms of the gym, which we get to later, or the event centre, then that will be about planning. Yeah, that's about having some looking at what is needed, what funding opportunities are, and things like that.
Yeah, I think just through the chair, I think what we're really needing back home, and I'll just put a Tūrangi centric view here again, is I guess that strategic view. So there hasn't always been the approach, I think, from a Tūrangi perspective about the long-term stuff, and so there's constantly had to be this coming out with cap on hand sort of business of trying to fix things. So this really, whilst it may not fit into our current frame of thinking, starts to inform a community about intent and where we want to go. So I don't think it's I don't think we're jumping the gun by articulating if this is something that this council wants to do, but certainly I think it is about just saying, well, actually, yep, there has been perhaps an underinvestment over a period of time, and that perhaps this starts to inform that. So I think it's really more around that sort of approach as opposed to specifics about how we get out of it.
Just through the chair, I just think there's been all that work and done with the TEEDs, and I just think maybe that sort of needs to be implemented, and it's chicken and egg stuff, isn't it? But that needs to be implemented and just see how that rolls, because the more growth and you have, the more substantial case you have. So.
And that's a discussion that we've been having at the board level, and the board are looking at some more workshops to actually continue this discussion. So they are looking to where they sit and where they want to sit and where they see their vision for Tūrangi, and so I think it's timely to wait for that to come out.
Okay. So clear.
Yep. We'll provide some words around that. Yeah.
Councillor Boddy?
Chairman, I might be wrong on this, but I thought with the alterations etc. that was going on down there, we wouldn't be having this conversation. We spent a fair bit of money. I'm just trying to come to grips with why it's raised its head.
Because it's been raised through the submission process, so we're just responding. Yeah.
I appreciate that, but I thought we had a done deal, but no.
So and that's what officers we're saying is that for the medium, for the foreseeable future, the investment that we've made there we feel is adequate, and it's yet to be 100% finished, but it's looking pretty spectacular. That's taking the current eyesight, tarting it up, putting new activities in there. What the submission is asking for is bowl the whole thing and go grandiose. That's in our view unnecessary. Not unnecessary, because it would be great, and it would be a great landmark and get people stopping. But I think what we as officers are saying is you can get better bang for buck for Tūrangi putting money into other things.
Right. You can formulate an answer out of all that, like Hadley? Yep. Okay, next one.
Which is raised in
So the T2T has been identified as one of the 6 catalyst projects, as you're all aware, in our district economic strengthening strategy. At the moment, we are still looking at the approach to landowner engagement, and we've had an ecological assessment done of the area of the first part of the track to Stump Bay, and also a tourism investment study done as well. So at the moment we are looking forward to the landowner hui, which will happen within the next 3 months. We've also got Glyn Williams and Te Wana Tibble on board as project champions for this project. So it is certainly moving forward, but as you can probably appreciate, it's a delicate process.
Okay.
We've also signalled to the Provincial Growth Fund that we will be coming to them in later months for some investment. What that looks like yet, we're not sure, but they will certainly be funders, and they are very supportive of the project.
So we've been very conscious that we don't want this to be seen as a council project. This is a Turangi community project and has to be driven by the community, because it's no good council coming and leading this. That's why there's 2 independent, very, very good people who are heading the project up.
Ross Baker is very vocal about this, and we're keeping him abreast of what's going on as well. So he's very passionate about this project.
Ross wants us to go, and some others, and I can understand it because it's a great project, great outcome. They want us to go and build the thing now.
Exactly. So we need to.
Can't because it's not our land, and even if we could, we wouldn't, because there's all the process that you need to go through.
Yeah.
So you'll see a few strands coming through the PGF fund here, which is a provisional growth fund. So we're very, very targeted about getting as much of that money into this region as possible, and we're down next Wednesday, meeting with the minister, and some of the conversation will be around these things. So we're trying to leverage that money as much as possible.
Is it possible to put a timeline on this? Some sort of a timeline?
Not at this stage. Are you specifically for the phased work? Yeah, no. It's kind of a bit of a moving feast at the moment.
It's up to landowners. It's up
to be fair, until he came and submitted, you know, like we hadn't had any information. Well, we hadn't had a up to date, you know, what was happening. So it sounds great. It's all been happening. Yeah. But we haven't heard anything.
Yeah. I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. Absolutely.
How many landowners are there involved?
Depending on which way the track goes, anywhere between 70 to 200-ish, depending on which way the track goes.
Right.
So that's one of the key things that we're addressing at the moment, is the first part of the track, and whether or not we can bring the amount of landowners down, so that, because obviously success breeds success, and we would love to get this first part from Turangi to Motuopa funded and moving forward, and then the rest of it will hopefully follow on from there.
Yes, the key of it is that very little of it is ours.
That's right.
We're only we own tiny slither of it, which brings some challenges from funding as well, because any funding that you put into it will be operational money. It'll be a grant, which obviously has a different rating impact than a capital piece of work.
Councillor Body?
Is this proposed track going through any farmland?
Yes, it will go through some farmland.
It was interesting on Country Canada last night, the Tainui in the South Island.
I saw that was very interesting.
And trying to have a working farm with people walking tracks. It's very, very difficult.
Yeah.
Tainui, no Tahu.
No Tahu.
Cool. All right. Yeah, Councillor King.
Just a clarification question. So, just in terms of our current approach in regards to the T2T, did I read correctly that we currently don't have any sort of any money tagged for anything in regards to the T2T?
That's correct. So the funding that we've been using so far have been grants that we've gone out and received, and council has been leading this project because somebody needed to lead it. So between DGLT and TDC, we've been leading the project.
So we've been putting money in, but it's through Office of Time rather than
Yeah. Eventually, we would like to see a governance group established, and that will no doubt that will be the next phase post the landowner engagement. Yeah, so that then that governance group, if you look at other successful trails around New Zealand, Old Ghost Road, for example, in South Otago, they had 2 champions that were leading the cause, and then they formed a governance group that were able, a charitable trust essentially, that were able to access funding.
Cool. Oh, so is there, just from an approach point of view, is there some value in us putting some funds, tagging some funds for this? Like, I know you're just saying that our current contribution is around officer involvement and sort of driving the discussion, but you know, if we're going to at some point go talk to more people about money, where's our contribution in that, and how are we actually saying we're serious about this if we don't have any dollars tagged for anything?
So, as Gareth was correct in saying, a lot of this is not, as you know, is not owned by council land, so the funding mechanism is very different, so you can't put a lump sum of capital in there, because it we don't see at the moment, Jess, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't see any investment required at the moment, because this is, again, it's what this sort of stuff is right down the avenue of the Provincial Growth Fund, and this is we're trying to make this as a great, as you know, a great story around this, and a great investment from central government. So I think I'd hate again to put a figure on this, because actually what we're doing at the moment, we're doing within our own funds. We're not spending any money. Anything we've done, we've got through grants from other players, which shows they've got skin in the game. So there's a real belief in this project from external agencies, so quite frankly I'd much rather leverage their money and put some council investment into some stuff in Turangi you get a better return on.
So you can't just put it in as a placeholder.
Money's not, us putting money in is going to make it go faster or slower.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that we can do that through words. As I say, money's not going to help, but it's the words that we're doing.
Right. Next one, Harold.
We had a number of requests or submissions around job creation or some form of economic development down in Turangi. So there's some responses on page 1962 in relation to those statements.
Does anybody have any? So Enterprise Great Lake Taupo have appointed Avril Nomai, who is the Turangi Business Advisor, to specifically work with local business down there, developing business and developing more, creating more, helping to create more jobs. So Enterprise Great Lake Taupo have taken the lead on that. Yes, and they are running small business courses and business enablement. So there's quite a lot of activation happening down in Turangi now that was previously the Go Tongariro role, but Avril has taken over through that.
I think what we've seen now with Carly's team coming in is a consistent approach across the district with this stuff.
Yeah.
So what you get in Taupo is what you get in Turangi and Mangakino.
There are a flood of jobs coming with the mountain. I mean, the opportunities for Turangi are incredibly huge, but there are some other issues that we have to deal with, and we keep saying it, but it needs to go somewhere, because we've got to prepare the people of that area to be able to do the jobs long term. It's all very well to go into them, they disappear out of them very quickly for a whole range of social reasons, for want of a better way to describe it. But there are massive opportunities coming for Turangi in Mangakino and the rest of the district, actually.
Okay, so I just can't see in the response here. You're going to put all those things in the responses?
We'll wrap some of those words around the fact that EGLT is doing.
Appointed, or the EGLT have appointed that lady.
Yep.
Cool.
Just through the chair, some of these submissions did come from youth.
Yes.
So if the responses can just sort of be written in a way which are not so technical.
Yeah, we certainly will ensure that those responses are appropriate.
Okay, next one, Heavy.
So page 1964, submission point 143.2. The submitter states that they would like more support of economic development of pastoral land as opposed to tourism, and whether that funding could be split between what's been allocated to Ruapehu Alpine Lifts and going into economic development in pastoral land.
Who's it? What's the submitter's name? Sorry.
It's on the previous page.
143.2, is it?
Yeah, on page 1964.
So, yeah. So, so the funding isn't directly to RAL, I guess, which is probably a point that to be made, because that does seem to be a bit of misinformation that's lurking around in the community that council has given RAL 100 grand to go off and get some skiers here. So I think it will be a matter of just explaining that the investment is to Tourism New Zealand, and that there are a number of other investors involved in that as well. Yeah, I think so too. It does seem to be, as I said, it does seem to be a little bit of misinformation floating around the community at the moment that the cheque was written directly to RAL. Yeah.
Cool. So add that in and make the letter a bit longer.
Yep.
Good.
Next one is on page 1968, and it's point number 171.3. It just came up a few times around, and I'm not sure if it probably fits better in transport than here, but we'll cover it here, around electric vehicles, both council ensuring that there's sufficient plug-in stations, but also council having electric vehicles. It did come up in a few submissions.
What page again, sorry, Hilly?
1968.
I'll try and answer some of that. I mean, there's a number now of, I think it's even Tesla ones, charges now. So it's begun, you know, and Mercury, I see they're zipping around so I understand we're looking into electric vehicles as well.
We're getting one as a trial very quickly, very soon. So we'll see how it goes. At the moment, to be really frank, particularly for us with all our government purchasing, financially it doesn't make sense. So they're still too expensive to purchase from a resale perspective. So we are looking at one that's more of a trial and just won't use the word commit because that's wrong, but we're going to brand it up as, you know, small steps, but we are trying. We'll try one out.
Interruption from Dennis Lewis.
Through the chair, just for members' information, there are 45 plug-in stations around the district. That's both private and public. 8 of those are situated on council land, and 6 of those are Tesla.
Cool.
Student, I have a question. I don't believe there's any tax on the electric vehicles in regards of road user charges.
No, it's not.
And I think that's something the council we need to. Well, why should we use ratepayers' money to fund roading for a car that doesn't contribute to the pool of monies?
So you're right, there is no charges.
About the equation that you're giving, because I had the diesel ute which I pay a user charge on, and then I got a car that runs on petrol, blah blah. It's the fact that they're not contributing anything. At least in diesel, there's a road user charge that you pay per 1,000 kilometres, or thereof. Sorry? Well, you could look at a remit, Mr. Worship.
So the next next point to cover off is on page 1969, It's submitter point number 174.13, and a request from EGLT for a $60,000 increase in annual funding.
Through the chair, sorry. I'm really happy to support this, but I just wonder, can we not start it? Just push it, like we can't commit to it in 18-19, but we can 19-20, 20-21 perhaps, because I know that we're hitting our limit somewhat, unless there's other things that we push out and it makes way.
Oh, through the ladies first.
Councillor Rankin, do you want to go first?
Thank you. Look, I just wanted to say, in terms of EGLT and DGLT, they are making, and they've both asked for increases, and well, I know we're only considering one, but whether it's year 2 or whether we started in some way in the first year, these guys are producing things that we can't. They're doing a fantastic job for us, and EGLT's had a new lease of life, and they are really getting results. But they've been very clear that they can't continue to get them unless we inject some extra money. And I absolutely support it. If I thought that they couldn't deliver or that they weren't giving it everything they've got, I wouldn't support it. But exactly the opposite is the truth.
Councillor
through the chair.
Williamson.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
That's what you were going to say, isn't it?
So I was absolutely am. Will support it. I've said that from the first year I got elected. I always thought the funding EGLT was disproportionate to DGLT. I'm not saying DGLT deserve everything. They get probably more, but I agree that I would definitely support the funding increase, EGLT.
Okay, councillors, do you want to do it in year 1 or do you want year 2?
Could we make some move to year 1? Could we give them something for year 1 and then complete it in year, put it up to its full amount?
Perhaps 30 in year 1 and then balance in year 2 and then ongoing. Councillor, sorry, yes?
Just about knocked his head in. For your consideration, the $20,000 of that grant funding that they're looking for is for the implementation of the TED strategy in Turangi, and the initial findings, we've had 2 hui so far with stakeholders in Turangi around this particular study, and there are going to be some, I hate to use the term, but low-hanging fruit projects that we can get up and running that will actually make a difference in Turangi. So it would be, if you were going to consider splitting it, it would be great to consider that as part of your decision as well.
Is that capital AOTS or is it
OPEX? The operation, so how EGLT use it in terms of the project.
As the project, yeah.
What's the projects they're talking about?
Sorry?
What projects are they?
Oh, for TED's projects, you mean?
Yeah. What sort of projects is in that?
Oh, so there's there were 87 actions that fell out of that plan, but the group has refined those down. So we've got probably about 6 to start with, including, and most of it's advocacy work, but there are some projects around looking at the redevelopment of State Highway 1 and the entrance to town and those sorts of things that haven't been completely defined yet, but having EGLT leading the way with the community board.
Right, so we've actually got capital in year 1 to do that work in terms of entranceway work, so that we probably want to part that conversation then, because it sounds like we're already doing it elsewhere.
And that's what I'm getting to, because the capital stuff we can do, the operational, as we just said, we've been saying all morning, that's a whole lot harder, but capital stuff we can do really easy. It just that it might be that's come through council's books and that we own the piece of kit.
Councillor King.
Thank you, Worship. So just in terms of that 60 increase, so first off, I'm supportive of it, so I'm just trying to understand a little bit more. So we've got the new Everall there who's been appointed, so is a portion of that to increase her capability?
Yes, absolutely,
Just through the chair, so the 60 grand from EGLT is one for the Bay of Plenty film office, is 20k, and you'll say 20k is for the TED, But there's a submission in here asking for a discretionary fund of 20 grand per annum for the TTCB for TED's implementation. Is this the same 20 grand we're talking about? So that's a completely separate point. Okay.
All right. How do councillors feel?
Through the chair, then perhaps if Bay of Plenty film and the TED 40k, can we do 40k this year and then up it to 60?
That would be great.
You can do whatever, it just makes a difference to Alan's numbers in the morning, that's all.
Well, we can
do whatever, we'll just bring it
we
back
can
to
talk
you.
in the morning.
Okay, so just 40 in year one?
40 in year one.
And then increasing to 60 from there on in.
Great.
Okay.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I would support support the 40 in year one. There may be some jiggling to do with is it enterprise monies or destinations, but I am a little bit concerned for the 4.5 years I've been on council. We're always on the cusp of something. Now we've just had the company that runs the native plant nursery going to receivership. Hopefully it's going to be saved. We had a wood plant, I think they were making pallets here in Taupo, moved to another coast. So we don't seem to be really, there's nothing that I know of that's right on that cusp of, if you like, making us a fortune. So
I think
two projects that you mentioned I would be supportive of, but that would probably be where it ends.
Yes, again, there's always going to be casualties because not every business is going to survive every market, but the overall situation is that there's a whole lot more jobs being created than what we've lost out of the 2 or 3 examples that we can think of that have disappeared. That jobs have reduced from.
And you just need to go to the total GDP is 2% ahead of the national average. There's your proof. There's your absolute proof there. As a retailer, that's all you look at is increase in sales, increase in jobs, and say all those indicators are going the right way. If they were going trending back, I'd totally agree with you, Councillor Body, but they're trending well ahead of the national average.
I just want to add that one of our biggest challenges at the moment is providing an appropriate workforce, and EGLT are really focused on that, and we are now attracting people here, but employers cannot get right down to cafes who want frontline workers. It's really hard to get people out of this district. It's incredibly hard.
Okay, thanks Jess, got that?
From that is the $20,000 per annum to the TTCB for TEDs, which I understand is separate.
What number was that? The next?
So 174.8 on the same page.
17 what? Sorry?
4.8 is the point, and it's on the same page.
What page were we? Sorry.
1969.
And unlike EGLT, I guess, with respect to the board, there isn't the detail underneath that EGLT have provided for that. So that's the only comment I make on that.
Sorry, Tom.
It's probably coming back to the earlier point. So what you're seeing is a pretty clear articulation of the board's position around trying to put stuff on radar, put stuff on radar. This is it again, putting it on the radar. So where it's been in a mismatch, you have to come and cap in hand all the time, trying to drive that strategic view. So I suppose it's really up to us as a council. How do we provide, so we're talking about TEDs and how the TEDs document with some awesome outcomes. How do we, sort of assist the community board and the council and the community and so on, try to drive this? So one view is we support EGLT, but another is we give the board a little bit more teeth or something else. So I guess I'm just flagging again, this is just another articulation of how do we support the community's aspirations, because they just fall by. So let's put them in plan and we can't do them, and we're in a catch-22 every single time. So just throwing it up here for you guys to think about.
David?
Councillor Harvey?
Yes, just thinking about this, we did undertake that, whatever it was, the overall plan, what was that, a couple of years ago for the Turingi area?
TEDs.
Yeah, sorry. And we don't seem to have any clear direction from that. So,
Well,
do
the
we
previous submittee you talked about 20 grand of EGLT money going into this. So
Yeah, so that's
target.
That's this. Sorry, that was my mistake. That's this.
Oh, so we've already approved it anyway. So let's
we're
go.
not talking about another 20.
Yeah.
Okay, we're
Oh,
confused.
okay. So we're doubling up.
So are you tagging, so to do that though, are you tagging,
Well, I think.
sorry, to do that though, are you tagging 20k of the money you're giving to EGLT to this?
No, sorry, that was my mistake. This 20 grand is for the TEDS study. So the money that was before was the operating revenue for EGLT, which will include the Bay of Plenty film and the other working projects that they have. So the next one is the $20,000 to the TTCB specifically for TEDS.
Yeah,
So it's another 20.
it is a separate amount of money.
It's a separate amount of money. So there's
The 40k had
from
nothing
the
to
one
do
we
with
just
TEDS.
approved. No, this is separate.
And
Yeah.
we've just given EGLT 20k for TED.
So Ted's, poor old Ted's, he's got knocked around a bit on this occasion, hasn't he?
No,
But-
Ted,
'Cause we
Ted,
all thought we were
Ted's-
approving
Ted's all
Ted's
good.
before. Eh?
TEDS is all good.
Ted's all good. I think let's just get 100% clarity on this, right?
Yeah.
So 40 grand will cover the Ted's.
Just, go on.
Okay, so EGLT, sorry, have asked for us additional $60,000
Yeah.
for their to increase their annual funding to 435, which will be their specific operating revenue, and then they've asked for EGLT have submitted that TTCB receives $20,000 specifically for TEDS. So you can, if you want to, give EGLT 40 and with the 20 grand that will go to the TCCB as nominated for TEDS.
So the discussion that these guys had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can go back and revisit that. And
Yeah.
As I understood your discussion, was around 20k of that EGLT money being for that looking through TED's
Yep.
implementation and
Yep.
20k for the flavoring film or whatever else
Yep.
in year one, given the constraints. So if you wanted to, you could go back and revisit that. Who
Yep.
gets that 20k with the board or EGLT is up to you. But
Yeah.
but that was the
Yep.
understanding around the room.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so still 40 grand in
40
year
grand,
one,
yeah.
and how they divvy that up, that's up to. Well, you were suggesting to use 20 of that for Ted's.
Yep.
You know,
If you want to tag it.
might
If
be
you
the
want to,
film.
and you can tag it or not.
The film outfit might have to wait another year or something like that until we increase it up to 60. Councillor Stewart?
Just if we're going to that 20,000 we've just given to EGLT, this 20,000 we're talking about is going to the board through EGLT. Is that still going to be up? Who's going to spend that 20,000? The board, DGLT? Are they going to do EGLT? Are they going to do it together?
That's a part to do it together.
Yeah.
So the idea is EGLT will come to the board and they'll be really clear as to what projects they're going to deliver over the next 12 months, and they'll come directly to the board. No, so my understanding of this.
Sorry, John.
Go on.
So we had EGLT asking for 60 grand,
Yeah.
which was to do their business.
Yes.
Yep.
And the new bit in there was Bay of Plenty film. Then we had the board asking for 20k, which EGLT supported, but there's 80k. Are we saying between those two, so the 80k in year one, we're putting 40k,
Split the 40k.
and 20k of that is specific to
Yes.
TED's implementation? Is that what we're saying?
We're comfortable with 40.
If that's what you're
And so
comfortable
then
for.
year two, as you said before, that year two, the DGLT money will go up to the 60.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then what happens to the 20? So does it go up to 80 in year two?
No.
Through the chair, is that 20 a one-off?
Yeah, that's what I'm not.
No.
Mm.
Yes. It's not 20 every year.
No, it's not 20 every year.
I think that's why they said that it's discretionary to the board, so the board are the ones who make that what it's for, but I don't understand that either.
Councillor King?
Oh, no, perhaps just a clarity point for what the board's view might be on this, and I realise I'm not chairman of the board, but certainly heard these discussions. we're talking about the TEDS document. We're talking about how can the board support the TEDS document and delivery of the actions that we. So that's got to be paid for by somebody. So who is that somebody?
I think the easiest way is if I could call. No, okay, I can't.
It's
I'm
quite
gonna have to
clear
come
in the
back.
submission.
Can you just give us 5 minutes? I'll get that breakdown for you. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Here's the EGLT submission. It's quite clear in here what they need all the funding for. It's a huge workload.
I actually don't think it was double dipping. I think it was just presented separately. It's not actually a double dip. I think the conversation got confused, but it's not actually a double dip. They've got to do both sets of work, and it's how we decide to support that.
Okay, so I think the level of comfort around the room was 40k level in year one, and to be honest, that's up to EGLT to how they. I don't think we should tag it. Perhaps it's up to EGLT to work it out with the board and all that sort of thing, and then we go to 60 grand per annum increase from year 2 onwards.
I think
Is that clear?
Through the chair. I think John and I are both confused, but no. but I mean, I was still happy with 60,000 first year. That's my personal view. Around 40, but.
Year one is where we've got numbers.
As of my fellow councillor sitting outside of me, to the board, the 20,000 for this test should be earmarked within that 40,000. Okay. Otherwise, the board will not be able to. I mean, and it's a partnership. I realise it's a partnership between EGLT, but the board needs some comfort. They've applied also for 20,000. We can't give 40,000, but we can give 20,000.
Yep. Okay.
It should just be tagged. So.
All right. Year 1, 40, tag 20 to TED.
Yeah,
good on.
60 and then ongoing.
Ongoing. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We say that the board has to approve the expenditure of that 20,000, so then we know that you guys are happy about it. Yeah.
So obviously that will.
Yeah, we don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Clear as.
Your worship, what's the second 20? Was that the film business?
Part of it.
Yeah, and
but
plus there.
So that's going to go on going 1, 2, 3 years. That extra 20 for the film business.
We're increasing
got a
their
huge
annual grant to 60 grand per annum from year 2.
That's why I'm questioning. Is the 20 continue each year? What's the third 20 going to be for?
It's in there.
Yeah, no, I've seen that
their
document.
work program, which is enormous.
Yeah. Lovely.
All right.
Done.
Done.
See where we
All
get
right.
to tomorrow.
Yeah.
No, I'm being
The morning's going to be
Yeah.
the extra 20,000 that you've just put in, making it 60,000 for the following years to come.
Yeah.
Just might need to be reassessed.
Yep. Well, Alan said the issue was year 1, year 2 and 3 the relief is slightly better. And look at him, he's lovely. He's actually smiling. All right, next one please, Hadley.
We're not going to confuse you this time.
Yep. Oh, sorry.
So we jump to page 1976 and at the bottom, submitter point 268.6. Now, this was around support for the Hook Falls and Wairakei Tourist Park area. We did have a few submitters comment around council supporting work in that space.
So the Hook Falls project and the Wairakei Tourist Park have been identified as one of the 6 catalyst projects in our district economic strengthening strategy. So there's feasibility and master planning work is planned. There'll be an application going up to the Provincial Growth Fund to fund that piece of work.
Just through the chair, on the Wairakei Tourist Park, we've always usually had a business representative for TDC. Is there one currently? I don't. It was preparing.
What, on the Wairiki?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm on there.
That's good.
Okay. Sorry, I wasn't listening to you. I was thinking of something.
And with all the business owners, that'll all be done as a partnership, won't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's in conjunction with
No,
stakeholders.
I just mean as far as it being funded, it's not all
PGF. Yeah. Those are the types of things that they're looking for, because once like with lots of these government funding mechanisms, once you get the feasibility and master planning work done through that particular fund, they're more than happy that's when they like to fund the capital works post that, if that's what's necessary. Yeah.
Through the chair, through the chair, I guess with the master planning, I guess there's a major factor in consideration with the treaty settlements going forward. Yeah, as part of that, as part of the ongoing vision thing.
There were some submitters who talked about Turangi being a park and ride, or having a park and ride facility for access, particularly to the Tongariro Alpine Crossing. So there's and requesting some funding in the LTP towards that.
So there are a lot of private operators that are working at the moment. This has been identified as a potential project that came out of the TEDS plan as well. So it's an opportunity. Yeah.
Opportunity to suggest the existing operators.
Doesn't necessarily require council investment though.
It's an opportunity to suggest to existing operators where they could include that option in their service.
And a dock opportunity as well. Yeah, with their plans for the access on the plan. Absolutely. Yeah, the pressures on the Tongariro crossing are quite strong.
Lovely. Next one, Hadley.
So at the bottom of that same page, 1977, there's a request from TTCB for a financial input for Turangi specific events, a total amount of $50,000 to be distributed by the board in addition to the $80,000 they currently distribute through community grants. So this is an individual point, but there were also quite a few other submitters who commented around events in Turangi generally, which this response, which is over the page, 1978, top of page 1978, covers off.
So just for clarity, so we run our events portfolio district-wide. The fund is a district-wide fund. The whole idea behind that, and Turangi is the only part of the district that runs our own events. Generally it's run by commercial or volunteer-based event providers. I think next year we've got the council inter-council sports games down in Turangi. There's the Christmas in the Park, and there's not Par Wars, but the Mariah Sports. So we actively encourage events across the district, and we had one planned, a big one planned actually down there recently, but unfortunately we couldn't get over the line for various reasons. But it's certainly something we focus on district-wide, not individually. And the only concern would be that we, like I said, we do run our events district-wide, and it's generally done by third parties rather than ourselves.
Can you give us an indication how many in the events team now?
Events
Starting
team?
level of the events team?
Oh, we've got two.
Five.
Oh, five, sorry, yeah.
Five.
Yeah. We've got Steve and Sinead who do.
Just when you say five, they are not just the five all have very varied roles. So a number of years ago we included all of our venues into the events team, and so they do bookings for Great Lakes Centres and all sorts of things as well. It's not just about selling events. So it's very much a district-wide team, and to be fair, Turangi gets more out of that than what, as John said, than what other places do, given that nowhere else do we actually run the events ourselves, where we do in Turangi. But I would say Turangi would get a reduced level of service if we were to set up have staff based just in Turangi doing events, and that's because at the moment they get to enjoy the resource of everybody from Steve at a very high level all the way through the team, and so we use the appropriate people at the appropriate time, where if you just had one person there, in fairness, you'd have a person sitting there in steel cab boots who had very little to do 99% of the time. It may change post if you were brave enough to build an event centre, say, or something else into the future, then absolutely we would need people to man that event centre, and they would also have to do other, sorry, not man, it's unpolitically correct, to staff that event centre, and they would help with other things when required as well. But you know, to give that context, we spend about $1 million a year at the moment running the event centre here in Taupo.
So if I wanted to have an event in Turangi, who do I ring?
Steve.
It's clear. It's clear.
And Steve actively, I know when he's talking to people, he actively talks about the district, doesn't just talk about Taupo. So
proportionately, we spend more time talking about events in Turangi than what we do in Taupo if you have proportioned it on a population basis or a ratepayer basis or any other way.
Okay. Councillor Kingi? I've got a view on everything now. Hey, so just in regards to this, I think, yep, I certainly acknowledge our current events team, and I know the submission there has been around an increase in staffing capacity. Look, that will be what it is. I think the 50,000 financial contribution really looks at it also from a point of view that you know, because we are a small community, and you can't necessarily get everything from Taupo, being able to resource local events that are run by volunteers is sort of one of the things I think that's coming through as a really strong thing for town. So we've had the Christmas in the park, we've had the pig hunting sort of contest. Now, on a grand scale, they're probably not a huge event, but I think if you look at them from a community perspective, they're a very cohesive event where they pull lots of people in. So that's where you start to get your active participation, pride in your community, etc., etc. So it's probably more about how we seem to support those than not now. Now, having an events person based in Turangi certainly might help that, but I don't think that's going to be the only strand that we adopt. So yeah, that's throwing my 50 cents in.
Well, in brief, we're suggesting we don't offer that funding. We just carry on doing what we're doing, which I think is pretty impressive what we do. So we just need to keep battering away and get focus on the district.
So this is kind of a multidisciplinary response required, so we'll bring in a few other people, but this is the Paitiki Shopping Centre placemaking request, so it's submission number 293 on page 1981.
Your first submission of the time. Okay, sorry, what page again, sorry?
1981. So it's sitting in economic development, but it's actually affects a variety of different teams.
Okay, Dennis has made his appearance, suggesting a 50-50 investment. We haven't actually identified exactly what they want. done, have we? So. They want, how much is it going to cost us?
Through the chair, the submitter had identified 3 stages and costings for those 3 stages. Stage 1 was 100k, stage 2 was 200, and stage 3 was 500. I'll deal with the 3rd stage, that's the easiest, and that was about acquiring some land across from the Pātiki shops and converting it into a park. So stage 1 was doing some of the traffic calming around the Pātiki shops, Rifle Range Road, either side of Tauripa. And stage 2 was doing some more landscaping on the footpath area in front of Pātiki's shops.
Any contribution from the landowners yet, or do they offer anything?
They haven't identified what they were willing to contribute, no.
Is there any appetite for any contribution?
They definitely didn't.
Didn't say it.
Okay, right. They talked about the contribution they've already made to their public buildings.
Right.
Which you could argue to apply that same logic to the Stephen down
we
here.
don't get contributions from
just through the chair, like just regularly going through that area to hockey or AC bars or whatever. I believe that maybe we could do some aesthetic stuff down there, but yeah, definitely not in the next financial year. But could we signal some sort of beautification work and then sort of lead them to it?
You have a submitter or just a right?
Through the yes. Through the chair.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Just pay attention, please.
Security didn't.
Yeah, I understand the owners or the managers up there have had some quite productive discussions with Kevin and Dennis's team with the services, etc., that type of discussion, connected with the proposed plans going forward. I personally, I'm very supportive. Obviously, it's at the end of the day, it's of quite a bit of investment. And it is a commercial operation, but it is quite a large suburban shopping area, the largest in Taupo, and the area services. I think it deserves, even at the very least, what Anne is suggesting, or even more so, there's some placeholding of something in this next 2 or 3 years. Yeah. I think that the community deserves that. I mean, I know it's apart from and I would perhaps suggest that they may be willing to accommodate some investment into that as well. That's just my view from speaking with them.
With that, because I think that whole area is extremely busy. It's a very important area, for town really, and I think it would look 100% better if there was a similar treatment to what we've done in some of the corners in town. And I think it deserves it, and I think we should be looking after some of these areas to make sure they're up to speed. And the traffic calming, I think it's worthwhile. Maybe it could be suggested that it was a 50-50 or some sort of contribution or something.
So through the chair, one of the things that when you look at that place that's an issue is the pedestrian crossing points and the opposite side of the road where people park on this yellow line, but people park on the berms and they're all rutted out and stuff like that. So there's some easy amenity stuff around things like that.
I mean, I think it's a neighbourhood in its own right, and it's a community, and it's a support. And I think, for me, what that submitter has done is highlight the art and the truth, and I think it's important on us to look at what we can do and make the area better.
Councillor Hickley?
It's interesting to me because a few years ago, all those corners were planted. The shoplands asked for all the planting to be removed and paved. So whatever we do, we need to make sure that it's done so that people have good vision crossing the road and doing things, and it don't create problems that the original planting supposedly created.
So that original planting, yeah, was a safety issue in terms of that, but the final straw on that is that it was actually it was disintegrating, so it was a really nightmare from an operational perspective, which is why we did what we did. So an option for you to consider about you, and don't know about volume, Dennis, of how much you put in, but we could split some capital between say year 2 and 3 to do some physical works there, I guess.
That would be entirely possible. Yes, just one thing through the chair, that you're putting a strategic hat on, if you like, that you're going to be developing a transportation strategy. Tararipa is one of your key transport routes, so that you need to bear that in mind with whatever you do. There's also quite a large, well, relatively large number of shopping centres around town on the periphery of town, and so strategically you'd be wanting to think about how you might deal with all of those rather than just one in isolation.
Okay, good point.
Just in regard to the funding, Mr. Lewis, would it come out of our existing town centre upgrade fund? We're not asking for any more, we're just going to make it go further.
I'm not telling you where the funding's coming from. That's your choice.
Well, I would certainly like to know, because you make a valid point about other areas, such as the other shopping ones. So
no, it would be, and it's totally over to you, but what we're talking about here is new money. The CBD improvement money is clearly tagged for the CBD. So if you were to use that for other areas, then that would be a reduced level of service for the CBD.
What I'm asking, because otherwise, why don't we set up a community fund for doing up other shopping centre? Well, I don't think we'd entertain that.
I think that's what Dennis is talking about.
Well, that's a completely new ball game.
I think the point is here, the Paitiki one is the largest suburban area. It is, it's a highly, high pedestrian count, and I think it's well overdue for an upgrade. So yeah, and they've come to us, they've taken the time submitted, and and I think the plan is quite well thought out. So how would councillors feel about 100 grand in year 1? Year 2, and then same in year 3 and 4.
Well, through the chair, probably if it's agreed to put 100,000 in the year 2, by then, because of their submission were only in fairness estimates as to what the scoping could be done, either collaboratively with council or with them involved as well. So
yeah, so we need to.
What we always do, of course, is we span work over 2 financial years anyway. So you award the contract this side, and then you spend it over the 2 years.
Yeah.
So it's essentially a $200,000.
So how do we include a possible commercial contribution?
I don't know.
we would be positive towards receiving a commercial contribution.
We can certainly have a conversation.
Yeah, they might want to provide the plants or something. I don't know.
We can certainly have a conversation with them as part of the project, and if it was 200 that you're giving, the 200 will get you this, or guys, if you want to put some in, you can get this.
It wouldn't be great if we ended up with some an intersection up there like we have in town. Really showing some love to that particular area.
Yeah, through the chair, for example, like talking investment, obviously investor money, because as I say, it's commercial and it's a business. They're businesses, but they have also invested things like security cameras, which have benefited the community. Not just the safety around the shops. There's actually ever been arrest. Those cameras was one very significant one a few years ago.
All right.
Gareth, in the CBD, when we use some improvements, I don't know whether it's car parking or changing the concrete pavers, do we have some sort of an agreement 50-50 or?
No.
There was some agreement a few years ago around a 50-50 share.
Oh, you're talking parking. It's the on-street parking, DNSA, which we don't.
That's correct. There's a 50-50 share with on-street parking.
Just through the chair, can we mention to them in their response about this transport strategy? Perhaps.
Sorry, what?
Well, that they're wanting to make changes like road calming and making changes to the road, but surely this is why I said when we got here this morning, maybe doing the strategy before starting to do all the work would be a way forward.
So that strategy is going to be done this calendar year, and we're just talking about that money being year 2 and 3, so that would time up quite nicely.
All right, thank you, Hadley.
The next one and final one for this is on page 1774. It appears somehow that the staff response has dropped off because it jumps over 2 pages, but it's a request from the Sculpture Trust for $200,000 for a sculpture on the Taha Reserve.
Right.
I understand Jess has been talking with him.
Oh, your idea, Jess.
Should I do a sculpture of you, David?
Oh, those narrow Harry Street. I can just see those houses around.
So the Taha Reserve has already been pre-approved by council as a site for one of the pre-approved Sculpture Trust sites for yeah. So obviously they are looking to put something on there that is kind of very placemaking for Taupo. They're wanting to put something quite iconic there. They're well aware that Ngātahoe Street is A1 Realty in Taupo, and they wouldn't do anything, wouldn't be able to put anything on there that was going to either distract from people's views. One of the first ideas that they were looking at was a set of reflective tumbling blocks that they're made from the special material that doesn't actually reflect the sun, but it gives off a mirror image that would be on the lower part of the reserve, so it wouldn't actually be in the sight line of any of the houses. So they're more than aware that they need to be that what they're going to put there, they need to be aware of the residents, the local residents. They're also asking for $5,000 over 3 years for the administration for the trust as well, for setting up their website, etc., that would help them fundraise for this piece of work. So as you can imagine, these types of sculptures can cost anywhere between $200,000 to $2 million, depending on what it is and who does it. The original idea was to get an international artist to commission something from an international artist, but they've kind of come back to the idea of using a New Zealand artist and having it local. So, up to you.
Yeah, I just think considering the sort of new cultural precinct possibility in council bill, wherever it might be, and all of that at this time we shouldn't commit to this.
Sorry. Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
You know, I said at that submission that I'm a near-earthal, and probably Mr. Green saying when he's committed which side he stands on the equation. If you've been to Tauranga and seen that Harry McCleary model, which kids can interact with, and it was supplied by 800,000 from the community. I drive around the lakefront here quite a bit, and I've seen more people standing on that I Love Taupo sign taking photos than anywhere else. I've seen a number of sculptures in different areas where one in particular was a table and chairs with 3 people sitting at them, but the people weren't real, but people sat down with them. In another area there was a miner coming out of the ground with his crash cap and light on. So yeah, it's something that people interact with. I've had no time for some of these things that go like that, and I know we can't say what we want, but I think we need to take that on board when we get some of these applications for sculptures.
The officer's response is not, as you said, it's not
It's
here.
dropped off, yes.
Yeah, dropped off.
Why did it drop off?
I'm not too sure.
Are we going to advise them to apply for a partnership agreement for the 5,000, or what's the reply to that?
Does it meet the threshold of 5,000 per annum?
Well, it is 5,000.
Over 3 years.
3 years. 3,000 and 1,000 for the next 2 consecutive.
Oh, cheap.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought. Yeah. All right. Yeah. I thought it was 5,000 a year that was asking for administration costs.
Okay, getting back to the piece of land in question, did that land get donated to us? I know it's been picked as a sculpture site originally. I can't remember.
I think it's council. Yes.
Council reserve. So do we know how we acquired that land at all? No?
I wouldn't go there, Your Worship.
No. There we go. Look at the big fella firing up. He's just perked his ears. No. Okay. So that.
So I think our response has been there's a $25,000 public art fund, which is dollar for dollar, and that's not shifted for the last 3 or 4 years, I think. So and although we've used next year, still delivered quite a few sculptures for that amount. So, but having said that.
Paper clips.
So no, so well, no, you don't. So for that very reason, this is why council has taken the same model as Wellington and other successful cities in this way. So internationally, with the greatest of love and respect, elected members aren't the best people to be determining public art, mainly because you're elected every 3 years, and those very issues that you talk about will come back, and you make decisions based on that 3-year cycle. So having the Sculpture Trust there, which is a completely independent trust, manned by people, personed by people that that love art and are experts in the field, but more importantly than that, that are willing to take the brunt of the community if it's wrong or if it's right, that they get the benefit of it. So that's why we've been very clear over the years. We don't pick the art; they do. You approve the site, and you approve the site based on, yes, it's an appropriate piece of art for the site, and based on mainly on operational issues. Can we store a mower around it? Is it going to cause a traffic issue? All that sort of stuff. So that's very clearly what you've done for the last 5-6 years since the fund was established. Just a bit of history, it was originally established at 50,000 a year. That was pre-GFC, so it's actually been a number of years now. That was 10 years ago. It was 100, wasn't it? It was 100, it then went down to 50, it then went down to 25. That's right. So just in terms of quantum, that's where it was. To be fair, when it was first done, I don't think we ever spent the full 100, because it's always been done on a 50-50 match fund basis. And we've also always been very clear that it's not just a Taupo Sculpture Trust fund that's available for anybody to do public art. And there's been a couple of others. I think Gary Traveller, who used to own Suncourt Plaza, used it for the 2 sculptures there. The big bike was used as part of that, and now the archway is probably the 3rd one that's not Sculpture Trust. or no, we didn't pay for that. That was completely gifted. Yes. No.
Okay. So what's the question is, I was just picking up on Gary's point, just asking.
Just through the chair noting.
I'd quite like to support something like this because, you know, we are a charming, vibrant, and all of those words in our, you know, values and so on, and we need to just open our minds a little bit to these sorts of things. You know, that's a fantastic site, and as John said, maybe it could be something, if we can direct it, that could be interactive, and I think we should increase that grant at least. Maybe we don't offer 200, but it could be 100. You know, like I think we should be thinking a little bit more laterally about this now because we need the place to look great. It's my opinion.
So just through the chair, just to clarify as well, just because it might help your thinking, remembering that this isn't an operational grant, this is capital money because it's a piece of council, it becomes our ownership, so it's a piece of council owned infrastructure at the end. So I say that because obviously the impact of capital is a lot less than operational.
So we're not going to be the grant.
I rather like Anna's comments regarding the new civic centre, and I mean, because these things take time to actually procure, and obviously being the arts person on the council, I'd like to support it, but perhaps because these things do take time, we could support it in perhaps year 2 or 3, so it gives them time, so there is a bit of security that there isn't going to be some money available, and I wouldn't suggest 200,000, but I think it's got to be reasonably substantial, that would give them some opportunity. Well, they could, that's what I'm saying, within that area would be great, really. Yes, yes, yeah.
Through, so it could be that something's included at that time for a future year.
Okay. You got out of it? Sort of.
Okay, sorry, so just so we're clear, the response will be that it could potentially be part of an LTP amendment in 2019.
Correct.
And included in the master planning process?
Subject to
Or?
cultural precinct master plan. Yeah, there might be a bigger demand for a sculpture in our new precinct.
Yeah.
instead of Narahoi. You know what I mean?
And that's what Hadley's seeking clarification.
Okay.
Yeah, through the chair, I wasn't meaning move the sculpture into the cultural precinct. I was just saying, can we just not say to them, we need to see what this is going to look like first before committing monies of that amount to this sculpture on that piece of reserve.
So that's just confused us again. But what I'm saying is there could be a bigger demand for a new sculpture of 200 grand magnitude in the new precinct instead of Narrow.
Why can't we put a piece of money in, say, year 3 and say towards a sculpture somewhere, the most appropriate place? Could we do that?
Yep. Yeah, and how much? 100?
Through the chair, the Taupo Sculpture Trust may agree if they find discussions that it could be appropriate in the precinct as opposed rather than the.
Could be Wairakei Drive.
I don't think we should get hung up on where it is yet.
So we can if there's
Similar, by putting it into year 3, which is appropriate, but we signal that they're making some commitment.
So we could have that conversation with them, either probably a combination of the letter and the phone call afterwards, just explaining, look, it's about following that process and just seeing what happens and where it goes.
Yeah. Cool.
We're talking 100 in year 3.
Year 3 or year 2?
Year 3.
Year 3.
Year 3.
That's still there.
Locations be determined.
100 year 3. It's 25 a year, as in current status quo, and then a one-off dollop in year 3
For
a
something yet to be
major.
decided where and what.
Yeah. You love him, Harry McCleary, John. You just told us before.
It is.
Right, Hadley.
They didn't make any requests for anything new. They supported what was already in the plan. Yep.
Right, is that you, Jess? You're nuts.
Yeah, sorry, I'm out.
So just
You want to say goodbye or not?
conscious before, I think it was Councillor Rankin talked about DGLT submission asking for increased funding. We haven't talked about that, but
No.
they didn't, did they? Because
They supported.
No, they supported what was in the plan existing for them.
because you've already and just so you are aware, you already essentially are increasing it because you're taking the eyesights out, so you've increased it by 300k, John, something like that, 200k.
Yeah, so their submission supported that, but didn't ask for any further decision to be made.
Okay.
So happy to carry on. All right. So we'll jump into parks, reserves, and playgrounds, which is on page 2051.
Thank you, Councillor.
Right, Nathan. 2051 submitted Molly McLean, is it?
Yeah, submitted Molly McLean. So first up request is around general request around shade sails and other improvements for safety, such as fences for playgrounds. There are a few submissions through that we've received around shade sails. This one's more generic and doesn't actually specify a site. Hence the staff response there states that it's possible to retrofit that to existing playgrounds. But when we move further on, there are specific sites such as the site down in Omori.
There's going to be a contribution for the community on that one too.
That's right. They had said that they would, but we'll get to that one. So this point was more that we need to look at it across all playgrounds rather than any specific site.
So the response is all new playgrounds and shade and safety taken into account as a priority, up to council as to whether they retrofit this to existing at a cost of approximately 25,000 per playground, is it? Per sale, is it? trees are expensive, aren't they? What do the councillors feel about this? Is it a priority? It could cost us a lot of money.
I don't think we should be making a ruling across all playgrounds, but we should look at individual playgrounds.
Yeah. Some have got trees, yeah.
As I said before, I was down at Motoropy yesterday and I drove up around the playgrounds. One's got a big tree there, but they look horrible. It needs a bit upgrade of the equipment, and they look barren. There's nothing attractive about them. And maybe the sales the issue, but then there's the cost.
Sorry, through the chair, the operations team just saying we've got 57 playgrounds, and probably just less than half of them probably need, have no large trees or anything around them. So, to give you some context.
Okay, what do you reckon, Dave?
I don't really think shade sails are a long-term option. They only last sort of 10 or 15 years, but when a new playground goes in, it may be an idea to put them in while you're waiting for some of your other development to mature.
They look tired pretty quickly too, eh?
Pardon?
They look tired pretty quickly.
Oh yeah, depending on where they are, they're prone to vandalism. They take some maintenance, so you need to be pretty clever about where you go and what you cover up, because it's pretty hard to get kids to stay under a specific spot of shade when they're all excited and running around the playground.
I wonder if we can provide council hats.
Yeah, sure.
Someone out there handling it. Won't be cool. Yeah. Sponsored hats, actually. Contact Energy hats. All right. Okay. So I think we're sort of just a bit of a numb silence around there. It would be great to do. But they do look tight pretty quickly. I think any new playgrounds, I think certainly.
Yep.
We could take that into consideration. They're Murukuratia. They've offered to pay half, I think.
Yes,
Yeah.
I believe they have. They wanted all three playgrounds done, but they were concentrating on the one up the top, which is pretty barren, to be honest. And there are covenants in there not to have such high trees as well.
Accept that offer and do that one, and go from there.
So we've got 20 grand in for that particular one, a new one. Is that right?
Yeah. Councillor Hart, sure.
Am I right? I thought there was one of asking for a shade sale over the skate park in Turangi. Was that not there? I had a feeling it was.
Yeah, so we're going to work our way through these chronologically, because there are a variety of requests, not just for shade sales, but for a bunch of things. So if we just keep working through, we should come across that one.
Yeah, so just in regards to our staff response, and I hope that it is policy for new playgrounds, but just to consider not only the shade and the road safety, but also accessibility. So, if you're in a wheelchair, you can't access a playground that's got bark on it. Or, and I'm not saying every single playground, at least the major ones, so that kids that are in wheelchairs can access something. So I hope that is part of the policy, that accessibility is looked at. Yeah, no, and also we had the gentleman that came to talk about seating, like, they can go a certain distance with their grandkids, but they just need somewhere to sit down. So, so I'm just saying as part of our staff response that we look at seating too.
Yeah, there's definitely staff agree with you, and we asked in the draft LTP for additional money. I think we've put in the draft for 10,000 for accessibility improvements, like minor, to get people to playgrounds and curb drop downs, and we've also asked for money to upgrade all of the soft surfaces under the playgrounds, so taking away the bark and putting in whatever's most appropriate, whether it's wet paw rubber or mats, so that they are more accessible. Obviously it's practically impossible to get a wheelchair over bark, so that is a really big focus for us moving forward. So we definitely have 10,000 for the accessibility on, I think it's around about 10 to 15 for upgrading the surface each year.
That 10 or 15,000, what will that give us if we've got 57 play areas? What's the term of changing some of those to a better surface?
I mean, it will. sounds like I'm hedging, but no, it's not, and it will depend on the playgrounds, the ones that we are going to be looking at a big review of all our playgrounds and what's necessary. We have some limited staff resources, so we're prioritising some other work first, but hopefully in the next couple of years, and getting a playground strategy before you as well. Some playgrounds will require very little intervention, just around specific piece of equipment. Other ones which are more popular or have greater needs around them will cost more. So again, that's something that we wanted to signal to you that that's important to us, but we don't have all of the details just yet because we haven't gone into it, unfortunately.
What's next, Hadley?
I think we will go through these one by one. Yep. It is. Well, yeah, she doesn't actually specify a specific reserve where she'd like this to occur. Hence the response states that we do take it into account, but we could retrofit to all playgrounds at a cost. But as I said, there's further on there are submitters who have requested for specific sites such as Omori, which we can address as we get to it. So, so the next one on that page, submitter 5, bold Taupo, requesting funding for renewal of the turf in the first year of the plan, along with a replacement of a fence. And we have funding set aside in what are the third year, I think. Third year of the plan.
Third year for the turf, not for the fence.
Correct, yeah, sorry, third year for a synthetic bowling green.
Just through the chair, do you think we possibly need to signal to the bowling club that there will be a sport and recreation strategy formed at some point, in which case it may mean they end up moving into more of a sporting hub type situation up at OD Park or somewhere?
So what you also
I don't want to.
What you also have, and I shared with you by email, the RSA Bowls decision, which was RSA not going there. What Bob Jollins acknowledged was that he still wants for the renewal of the lease to be considered, so that's going to be coming up to Fred in the next little while. So regardless of what you do with this money, they've got a lease for a set period of time. I think it's 9 years left, something like that. They want that renewed, so a committee, you guys are going to have to make that decision at the next Fred meeting, I think it is. Nathan?
The request was in April, but because of the RSA bowls thing, that wasn't resolved, so it will be the meeting after, which is 3rd of July or sometime in July. So the next Fred, there's a report scheduled to go up then.
So that'll be that decision you're going to have to make then anyway, and so that'll start to determine then what you do. So the timing's quite good, because I think by the time we write the letters back to them, you will have already considered the lease.
Yeah, because they also spoke in their submission about upgrading their kitchen facilities. I'd hate them to go and spend loads of money. Kitchens aren't cheap, and then be told we'd be moving them on. And if that is the case, do we then need to put in year 10 or 9 and 10 a possible rebuild of sporting stuff?
Just going back to the workshop, unfortunately I wasn't here, but what did the councillors feel? Did they feel that it was going to be a good option for the RSA and bowling club? Like where we could really force our hand here, we wanted to, by not granting a new lease. So, okay, cool. No, that's all right.
But they've decided that now.
They've decided that anyway, but that where we have got the power is over that lease for 100 members. Do we want to increase it another 9 years for 100 members? Prime site. So, yeah.
I think through the
we can discuss that when the lease.
Yeah, I think in fairness, it's obviously going through the master planning and the scope of what may happen down there. There may be some. At the end of the day, the bowling club may be willing to, if there's a suitable environmental situation, proposed to put forward, they may be prepared to leave, to move, or otherwise they could be developed as recreational sport hub or something, I don't know. But so I think, I mean, as you say, they've got another 9 years on their lease. So, and as you say, they're coming to us for renewal.
So they want 18 years.
Oh, they want as long as possible. So I think those three things, you know, the LTP funding, what you've allowed for, which isn't location specific, you know, but the lease and the master plan, they need to sort of come together and make a decision.
Okay.
Through the chairs, this put a bit of, imagine puts a bit of pressure on the French committee if they're going to come in towards a renewal of the lease before they've had a chance to.
You're trying to renege on making a decision again, John?
No, but in terms of the context of the long-term plan and master planning.
The committee may well decide that you don't have enough information, that you need to wait for that master plan. That could be an outcome of the French committee. It could well be a recommendation from our council officers. It could be the recommendation from officers at this point. So, yeah.
All right. Okay, Hadley.
So if we jump over to the next page, submission 10. This was a submitter out in Kinloch who actually was in contact with council midway through last year, I believe, and requesting a skate park in Kinloch. So this was held back for the LTP for this particular purpose.
Kinloch committee. You can decide on that. Yeah. There's sufficient space. Yeah, good answer there. Ellie, did you come up with that answer? Oh, Nathan did. Perfect. Perfect.
So moving on then, the next submission, submitter 31, and he is an owner in Rereo Lane. Page 2052 at the bottom, submission 31. In Pukawa, correct.
Better. They're having issues with, I guess, number of people coming up the lane to access the track network. Currently, at the end of Rereo Lane is an access road. It is that goes up to council's water reservoirs, and so the public are going up Rereo Lane, hopping over the gate, and going up that access road. So it's concerns about the number of people using that lane. So they've proposed that they put in an extra track that starts at a separate part of the village and then goes around and picks up the existing track network. Yep, at the moment one of the things that we thought we could look at was actually putting signage up and seeing whether we could actually deter people from using the path that they're currently using with a bit of signage, which isn't something that we'd tried at this point. Yeah, that's correct. That was on this side of the road. It's not actually on the laneway here, so it'll be a transportation one, that one.
Yeah, finished. Okay. Grab the hot seat. Just give me a second. Yep, no, that was so, yes, you're absolutely correct, Councillor. Part of the submission was talking about a subsidence of a bank on the road. As a general rule, and where council hasn't undertaken any actions that lead to the bank instability, then council's not required to provide a right of stability to the adjoining land. In this instance, all that council has done is when the material has slipped down onto the roadside, we've cleared it up and taken it away. So on that basis, council doesn't have a responsibility to retain the land. Yes, they do.
Chairman, this will be a completely separate issue to the one we've already addressed in town here.
That's correct.
Okay.
Clarify that in response.
Right, very good. That's Colin Stewart. Yep, next one. Petronola Corbett.
Yes, so that's simply talking about community gardens being built that include vegetables, compost and worm farms. And the response just notes that there's already one in Waipahihi and also Mangakino. Next submission is around a major upgrade in sports facilities. We've got a large number of those requests sitting in the sports grounds section, so this made it into parks, reserves and playgrounds, but we'll cover those off when we get through to sports grounds. Next submitter requests a basket swing to be installed in the Atiamuri Village Playground. Submitter 54, and that response goes on to page 2054. So the cost, according to staff, $13,000.
And they've currently got swings there.
And a large double one.
Well, there is a just played out there because Unison paid for playground in Mangakino. Atiamuri, yeah. But don't they operate there somewhere too? No. No. Power company. Transpower, sorry, yeah. Lines company, yeah. So basket swing. What is that?
It's the big
Yeah.
four
circular
chains.
woven
Like a
swing.
bowl.
Like a love seat.
Well, it's a big bowl.
Teenagers love them. You can fit sort of 4 or 5
They're
people in
awesome.
them depending on how big they are.
Yeah.
Everyone
I
is,
can't get
yeah, they're
mine.
very popular.
Okay, Atiamuri Playground, is it?
But not
Is this in the village?
Yeah.
When was the last time it was upgraded?
Oh.
when it was built.
So in the
Not sure.
50s? It sure works, yeah.
Correct, 52? 55?
Could it be retrofitted with a basket swing? Take some of them out and put a no. Okay.
What about if we say if they can fundraise some money locally to help out? To the possibility? Yep.
Do that in Taupo?
Huh?
Do we do that in Taupo?
Yeah, I know
We
we
do.
do on that stuff, but it can almost, particularly for little communities like that, it can be almost more of a slap in the face than just I know what you're trying to say, but it can be taken as a, just be conscious, it can be seen as a real derogatory thing.
Yeah, and then how much money gets spent in it, like from their perspective?
Great community project. Have a sausage sizzle.
People get pissed off though with the council. I know what you're saying.
Yeah, it will be in the renewals program. It's just playground equipment typically lasts, especially inland, for a minimum 15 years. So it will probably be coming up in the next sort of 5 or 10 years, depending on the what state the equipment's in at the time when it gets assessed. Yeah, it depends on the equipment. Swings are actually one of the cheapest types of playground equipment you can install. But yeah, they do need to be assessed for fall zones and distance from other equipment and soft fall materials. So, but it seems reasonable for one piece of equipment.
Okay, you want it done? Cool. Okay, put it in.
Oh, sorry.
22.
Tell you what, here's another question though.
Have you counted?
Here's another question though. If
Chloe Walker.
That's right.
Oh, this is probably Chloe Walker in disguise.
Oh, I don't know.
Well, she's got another one on the way, doesn't she? So that's fine.
But I tell you what, if you went
All
to
her
that,
kids wouldn't fit in that basket.
if you went to that community and said we're going to put $13,000 into your playground, is it a basket seat you'd really want? Are we 100% sure that's what they really want?
Oh God, cost you 20 grand in consultation.
I know, but we need to stop. It's not in our renewal schedule.
State Highway 1 though, big high profile here, you know, State Highway 1, carriage way. Did we?
We'll charge them 13,000 for a health license if they sell sausages.
One call to Shanghai Pung Swing, they'd get that 13k, I'm sure of it. The biggest farmer in the area. All right.
So the next 2 points are from the Motuapa Residents Association regarding seats being installed, and that is occurring. 2 seats being installed at Parakawa Drive and John Norrie Place. I am assuming that's either happening or happening this week. Yep, happening this week. The next request is from the Mike Bowie Omori Residents Association, and this is the point around requesting a shade sale for their community, which we've already covered, I believe. Yep. Next one, so the bottom there, Whareroa Residents Association request for 2 bench seats for the village, 1 installed at the tennis court and 1 on the rivermouth side of the village, and seats being installed on the reserve and a drinking fountain being installed at the tennis courts in the next few weeks. No provision there for any play equipment at this stage. Sorry, yeah, there was. It's just at the top of that page. Additional play equipment at the playground beside the tennis court and a drinking fountain at the tennis court. So the drinking fountain's going in, but there's no provision at this stage for the play equipment. Yeah, seaters being installed at the stream mouth in the next few weeks.
There's a playground. Is there one of the 57 acres? Is there no playground at all?
On saying that there's no playground, I'm sure that the community out there will be very happy to have the conversation about what to do with the playground, and I'm sure that they will like to come to the party as well with part of what happens out there with the playground, not just verbally, but either financially or helping in some way. Sorry, David?
The request would go to the community board to start with?
I think just have the conversation with them first and see what they like and how they'd like to work together with council to get something.
The response, we're happy to have the conversation about the playground.
Yeah, it's in there.
Stage, but, and the seats happening and the water station.
Yeah, that's in the response there. No provision for play equipment, but we're open for conversations with the community. The next one, so 127, below that, the submitter requests small playground upgrades in Turangi, and just notifying them that playground upgrades are planned for years 1 and 2 of the LTP already.
Jim, if year 1's going to be tight, why don't we make it 2 and 3?
What money's involved? $110, $20?
Yeah, and I think it was part of an overall open space upgrade. So we had 2 budgets tagged for Turangi in the first 3 or 4 years, one for the sports grounds at Turangi Tukua and facilities, and one was an open space upgrade, which was a lot of the review of the equipment and an upgrade at Te Kapua.
And just to add that Turangi have been waiting a long time for this, and I would hate to see it go out another year.
So in the LTP, which was contained within the consultation document, there's 474,000 across years 1 and 2 for the playground equipment.
I think we'll leave it there.
In the district. District. Yeah. Okay. Leave it there.
Submitter 130 requesting an outdoor bouldering wall in Turangi, again noting that there's open space upgrades being planned for years 1 to 4, and that council can work with the community through that process.
Through you, just reiterate Councillor Stewart's comments about the conversation with the community next year or 2.
So there's further Turangi playground requests. Next one beyond that is at the bottom of page 2058, submitter 148, Sean Venel, and noting the mowing of Wairaki Drive, Hook Falls Road.
Before we go on, going back to Turangi, I mean, just little things like repainting the lines on the basketball court, is that not something we can do just to give those kids who came in a small win quite quickly? Yeah, just yeah, because if we just give some small wins, I mean, it shows they listen to, we're engaging with youth, and it'll just hopefully inspire them to keep it up. Cool.
No, that's okay. Sorry. So at the bottom of page 2059, submitter states there should be a concrete path at Crown Park to link all the schools around the path.
Did we do Sean Venel's?
Oh, sorry. Sorry, Sean Venel's. So yeah, he improving the mowing area on Wairaki Drive. So currently, that area is mown around 8 times a year at a cost of about $4,500.
Oh, for the total.
Total.
If you want to do it more often it'll cost more.
Yeah.
lawns? Huh?
Just for the roundabout.
Oh, we're talking just roundabout here, sorry.
Yeah, costs haven't been included for the... Sorry, Dennis.
Through the chair, the cost of 4.5k is for the mowing of Waraki Drive from Hooker Falls Road out to the Waraki roundabout. It gets mowed about 8 times a year. From Hooker Falls Road back down to Control Gates is mowed by our own forces, and that's mowed about every 2 weeks. Now that $4,500 is the current contract value. That contract expires on the 30th September, and I don't know yet what the new contract rates are because we haven't opened the prices yet. That's days away.
Right. So if you wanted to do it more often, we have to put that in a new contract.
Yep.
And we'll come it across, but it's up to you.
I think it looks quite good, actually. Should do it a couple more times, perhaps.
Daft question. How low does the mower mow?
How low can you go?
I raised this issue. This might sound daft, but a ratepayer approached me over her road front being mown, and the next day the yellow flowers were up. And when I had a look myself, it appeared as though the mower was mowing quite high.
We actually have the expert in the room with Andrew as the mowing expert. So Andrew, do you know exactly the mils?
I'm going around about 50 to 75 mil, but the thing, because it's so infrequent and the grass is getting so high, often the mower will push it over, it will miss a lot, those dandelion heads are sort of not really taken care of in that type of mowing. The frequency would sort of reduce that type and give a better finish, I guess.
Yeah, well, the area that I'm talking about is probably done every 3 weeks. It just appeared to me as though you'd get a longer time without having to mow it if the mower was mowing lower. But
the last thing you want is to mow too low and you end up with clumps the whole way. There we are, Barry's coming out. This is your field, Barry. This is your time to shine.
Most New Zealanders mow their lawns way too low.
We could graze them. We could graze those sides. Good point, John.
Our normal
electric tractor.
Through the chair, our normal rural roads are mowed about 4 times a year, and those 4 times a year are programmed for the high growing season, so that it's not every 3 months. It'll be 4 times a year targeted around the high growing season, so that just gives you a little bit of comparison. And the mowing is for visibility as opposed to aesthetics.
We were about 4 LTPs ago, the council was trying to save money and took out 1 mow every year. So it turned it from 4 to 3, remember that? And all hell broke loose. We had thousands of submissions when we put it back in the next annual plan.
So Dennis, if you increase the mowing by a couple of per annum, would you notice a hell of a difference?
A couple per annum probably wouldn't make much difference.
Oh, Andrew, sorry.
3 to 4 cuts would make a difference, but and like Dennis says, it's all about the timing of those cuts and getting them in the growth period. Can't always sort of account for what the weather's going to do, and that makes it difficult. But yeah, sort of 3 to 4 extra cuts and timing them well, and not taking too much out of them. The risk of mowing too low is that often your grasses die and then you get your dandelions and all that kind of thing back. So there's a whole lot of things that could be done to sort of manage that a little.
Well, we've got the new tender coming up, as we suggest the increase in service supply in that new tender documents.
The tenders have already closed.
No?
Tenders have already closed.
And they're not due till September. What you said
that's the starting date.
The start date for that contract is 1 October.
So what we can do is we can negotiate if you want some more, we can do that now, or we've got some power through that process.
We'll tell them they can get the tender if they do another 4 complimentary.
It's a fairly substantive contract.
I'd like to say, sorry, that I think we should look at this because we had a lot of flack over the summer from several people about places looking scruffy and untidy, and I think that's where ratepayers do get quite irate if things like that are not attended to. So I think we need to think about it.
So my question, at the moment we're just talking White Arcade to town. The other one, which I think is in the same category, would be between Rainbow Point and the roundabout there as well. So you do both your entrances. Because they're on the same rotation, are they?
Yeah, same contract.
So my advice would be probably treat them both the same because they're both your main entrances into town. From the roundabouts are your entrances to town now, so we've pushed the entrance out a lot compared to what it used to be, just the threshold.
I think we talked to that. We preferred to maybe to increase it to 4 times from 6 to.
It's 8 to 12.
Cool. Thank you.
So, Chair, just by the way, it's not actually part of the submission, but just in general, I've had get quite a few members of the community coming to me anyway regarding right-of-ways and things like that not being to their view maintained as well as they could be. Right-of-ways, like in the right-of-ways, or pedestrian access. What do you call them? Yeah, and around reservoirs and things. So.
Andrew, we have a program on the general maintenance of those.
We're currently reviewing the
yeah, cool. Well, thank you. Right, Adelaide, what's next?
So just slightly further down that page, submitter requesting a concrete path at Crown Park to link all the schools around that path.
To link all the schools.
Mountain View and Toyota College.
Oh, to Crown Park, sorry. Crown.
Transfer yeah. So the response from staff is that obviously we're doing transport strategy, can be looked at as part of that. So next submission, submitter 164 on page 2060, requesting, or neighbours disappointed at the lack of use of, how the facility gets used at Riverside Park and also around the connection between two separated parts of the walkway.
Put the market down there.
And the staff response is we're looking at reconnecting that. Submitter states that the council site at 72 Lake Terrace should be turned into reserve and the end of Rifle Range Road closed.
That's popped up quick, isn't it?
The grass is taken well. We're going to remove the fence. I think it was next week. Gareth Robinson was telling
Sure,
us.
put a couple of picnic tables there.
No. The problem is the moment that you let it be used as a reserve, it'll be reserve and you'll never be able to sell it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Sorry, Hadley. Where were we?
So I don't know if there was any comment.
What was the
comment on? No, okay.
Riverside Park?
Okay. So the next one, is at the bottom of 2060. It's 167 Richard Balm, but it carries over to the following page. And the submitter requests that urgent upgrades or improvements be made to the Great Lake Walkway, Lions Walk. In response there that Council's committed $350,000 currently in the LTP every second year for that. The submitter also noted that it should be funded by development contributions, but only the growth component can be funded by development contributions. And this point has been made by a few submitters, including the one immediately below, which was Access Taupo and Taupo MS group representative. Around entrances to the Lions Walk, especially at Kowhai Road, being bumpy and rough. So I suppose currently $350 every second year. Yeah.
So, Mr. Chairman, the word growth is use of the walkway.
In terms of the way development contributions are set up, only the component that's driven by growth, i.e. you couldn't just renew the walkway using development contributions because it's just simply a renewal. If there's growth that's driving or requiring, say, an extension or a widening of the path, that potentially could be funded through development
And the
contributions.
growth is the use of?
Correct.
So it'll be the same as Whairawaka Point where we put the new Tarsfield Road roundabout, turn around in?
Only part of that could be. So Whairawaka is a really good example of if you want to do a part of that as DC. So the easy way to think about the Lions Walk would be if you were just replacing the cobbles with concrete, say, and it was the same width, there's no way you would use DCs because that's a renewal job. If you were increasing the width from the 1.4 it is at the moment to 2, because on the justification there's a whole lot more people using it in conflict with bikes and everything else, then there's an argument that the cost of that widening could be done under DC.
And that would work because it's a shared footpath that causes a lot of angry people, so...
And that's what the response is.
It's quite a complex equation that you have to go through and prove to the auditors and others with TC's contribution that it is a growth component. It's not simple.
Can't be backlog. It can't be what they call backlog, which was that it was underspent in the first place and all that stuff.
So I suppose the decision is council comfortable with what's currently in the LTP. So we jump a few through to page 2063 and submitter 186, stating that that they would like to see a concrete pump track built for kids and adults of Taupo.
Where's that, Spa Park or something? Yeah. There's a pump track there now, isn't
So
there?
a pump track is like a miniature BMX track where you don't actually need to pedal very much. You're pumping your way through it. It's good for skills development and quite easy, but there is already a track at Spa Park.
Yeah, that was the difference. They requested to be concreted.
Who's that request come from?
Andy Lee, I think it was.
Transport strategy. Sport. Okay.
Submitter stating the skate park should be upgraded. Staff response that it's a new facility and no upgrades are currently planned out of Mangakino. Submitter 193 at the bottom of page 2063 states that council needs to stop moving the Saturday market. So obviously there's a response there from staff.
We'll change that to say that.
So page 2065, submitter 201 at the bottom, submitters asking around the growth of, well, why council is still allowing the growth of blackberry gorse and other weeds. There's a staff response there, along with some noting signage for cyclists on the what looks like the Lions Walk.
Through the chair, I had a couple of hours cleaning up on Earth Day and walked along the beach from the yacht club along as far as I could, and a lot of that unsightly broom and stuff is actually protecting the bank from erosion, so it's a bit of a tricky one.
So through the chair, that's into the sparks.
Good binder and it's a nursery car.
So So I mean, long term, in about 10 or 15 years, that will be gone and there'll be native vegetation there. So it's playing the long game rather than the short game.
Yep, happy with that, Harold.
Okay, so carrying on that same submitter on page 2066, so submitter 201, and point is 201.8, around a safe off-road commuter route to Wairaki Tourist Park. And Council's currently working on widening the off-road cycle lane up control gates.
We've already widened that, have we? It's already been done.
Pretty much.
So they're talking out to the actual park here?
Looks like it.
So invite Taupo to do some work up the top end as well. Yeah, it's already half built.
Right, I'm on the bike Taupo. Taupo.
So just going through them now to see if there's anything further, any further points. Sure.
Just in regards to the 100k for Mangakino, we put that in there for the changing rooms, and then Turangi, you know, that was just a figure plucked out of the air. Turangi's come back and that they needed extra funding to be able to do their temporary fix, and because ours is going to be permanent, not temporary, I was just wanting to put it in the budget for it to be 200 grand, so it can be like a long-term building, and just be put in the budget. If we don't spend it, we don't spend it, but rather than come back with asking for unbudgeted funding.
What year?
When is the first? Is the 100k in the first year? Second. So it could be the second year, could be. Yeah, because it's not going to happen this year, but this. So it would be this season. Sorry.
Yeah.
So it would be planning.
It is first year.
Yep. But it's going to take a bit of planning because there's no plans yet. Yeah. Seriously. Oh, then be prepared that will come back up for unbudgeted if it's smaller, which it will likely be, because Turangi's is a prime example of we're supposed to be copying that example, which we're now saying, well, actually, we want that's a temporary model and we want permanent, so it's actually going to be probably more than that. So I think we're under budgeting.
What did Turangi come to? Yeah, is it 170?
Yeah.
It does make sense. Yeah. I'm supportive of that, by the way.
Yeah. And I mean, I think we can pretty much prove it's not going to be enough.
Yes. Just given out.
170 is running for it.
But that's for the containers, which is temporary. And so we're wanting to put like a long-lasting option, yeah.
I think we need to.
How much, sorry?
200.
Another 100.
What year?
Year one.
So is it 200 in year one, or are we going to split it?
Leave it to the bow wave.
So the next one to consider is at the bottom, starts at the bottom of page 2070, submitted 271, stating that Expenditure needs to be accelerated in construction of offshore structures implemented for erosion at Kuruto as soon as possible. Beach replenishment needs to occur annually. Need to ensure the beach the correct source of replenishment sand is used. An annual planting program needs to commence, and that the submitter's organisation is willing to provide volunteers for that. And then the staff responses at the top of the following page, 2071. Comfortable with that? Yep. Okay. Next one, also on that page, TTCB submitted 272. Point 272.15, the submitter requests that the 737,000 proposed for open space upgrades be allocated over years 1 and 2, and for the replacement and redevelopment of Te Kapua Park, playground, basketball court and surrounding amenities.
We can. I think we've gone so far through the process that we've got a really good handle on what the community and Turangi Tukua would like. I don't believe that there'll be any significant changes in the plan works once the management plan is done. And there has been, not pressure, but there has been indication that we've spent so much time on it and waited so long that they'd like to move forward sooner rather than later. So I believe that because we've got such a good handle on it, and we've already spoken to pretty much everybody in the community that would like to have their say, that I think we can move forward to the next stage, which would be the detailed design and going out and saying, hey, look, we've decided this is what we want to do. Now, what are the details with that? So, and I think by the time we get through that, maybe the management plan will be just about finished in any case and caught up. So yeah, I just feel on the basis, on balance, it will be better to move forward and give this community what we promised rather than hold off for something which may or may not make any difference or just hold it up. Yeah, so that includes Turangi Tukua Sports Park and a new facility down there, as well as an upgrade to Te Kapua and refining all of the playgrounds. It's not all in here, a new one. It's a request to bring it forward. We just don't have the resource all the time, and it would be unfair to do all this work and not go out and talk to people about the detail that they want.
Same submitter requested the funding for Omuri, which we've already covered. The next one on page 2072, submitted 274, 2072. Submitter requesting that a toilet be put back at Waipapa Reserve. There's a staff response there.
The only thing I can say about that area, and it's always full of people. It's full of travellers, it's full of people with their bikes going off up to do the trails. The other day there were about 30 or 40 school kids on bikes in that area ready to go and do their trails and things. There's always fishermen in the river. You'd never go past there without it being full of people, and I don't know where they go to the toilet. I know it's a hard space to
it's yeah, I'd have to agree with that. It is actually a very well used space now. And once we realise our vision of the T2T, I suspect it's going to be an even more well-used place. So I think we do have to have a think about the long-term view of where this site's. I understand some of that political space previously, but we need to keep it on our radar. But sorry, Your Worship, can I just instead of playing catch-up, I wasn't any clearer of where we landed on that previous point around the open spaces. I did want to speak to that though.
So currently 737,000 set aside in years 1 to 4.
Okay, so just so I can get my head around it, when it sits in a space of 1 to 4, that means you can move in the space of 1 to 4? Or is it spaced over 1 to 4?
The car park is of uncertain ownership, but we're probably 80% certain that it's NZTA. And part of the other discussion is if you had a toilet there, a lot of the travellers would stop there and would have one less reason to go into the CBD, which is less than 150 metres off the main road.
But they're not going to, the ones that are just travelling on are stopping and they're not going to into town anyway. And you could also use the fact that there's a toilet there to actually showcase what's in town. I've seen it done in Bulls and places like that, where when you go into the bathroom, there's things in there that tell you about what is in town, so that people use it. And regardless of whether people are going to go where, they're using that park now. And also, I think the area where the car park is, it's quite a big area. And I'm sure in the past we've looked into where and who owned it, and it was Transit that owned it. I just feel that years ago the objection was that it would stop people coming into town, but things have really moved on since then in a big way, and the use of that area has moved on in a big way as well, and the connection to town has changed. So I think it is something that we will have to keep looking at.
So the car park is NZTA land. The park is council administered land owned by Ngāti Turangi Tukua.
just think it is something that we will have to look at eventually. So it will stay on the radar because it will have to happen.
So in terms of the substantive side, it's just finishing off this and then probably sports grounds, and then the rest are probably significantly quicker, which we could carry over till tomorrow if you'd prefer. Could do, yeah. So carrying on, submitted number, what's that? Sorry. 303 on the middle of page 2075, Tauhara Community Support Initiative. The first point there is around the Pihanga Reserve Playground and a desire to continue work on that. And the second point is around the Bryce Street Playground and confusion around the basketball court and timing for that. So the first one around Pihanga, staff obviously can continue to work with the CSI and complete the program as planned. As far as the second point around the Bryce Street Playground, the basketball court is still included, but it is in year 3. So I think the point from the submitter is they were expecting it sooner than perhaps year 3.
So the basketball court was identified in year 4 of the previous long-term plan, which would be year 1 of this LTP, and when we brought it up to you for discussion, councillors decided to push it out a few years.
So it's $37,000 sitting in year 4. Sorry, year 3 current. Oh no, actually, year 4 currently. Correct.
Sorry, I think through the chair, the rationale is probably just the bow wave that we knew we're having in years 1, 2 and 3, and so what we have tended to do is pull a lot back into that, and Mr. Mahina will show us that in the morning.
A keyhole court is, so the keyhole is, let's say, it looks like a keyhole. A keyhole court is not probably what we would install. It would be a half court, which is it's actually a third of a court. So then you can have official 3-on-3 competitions. So I wouldn't recommend putting in a keyhole, but the budget that we did put in was to accommodate, a proper half court. A keyhole you couldn't, is actually within the 3-point line, so it's not actually giving you much benefit really, apart from maybe a one-on-one game.
Through the I'd like to see it brought forward because it sort of loosely fits in with the Waitiki, the suburban ambience and with amenities, so I think that would probably be helpful. Yeah.
So I was just going to say it is similar to Pihanga in that we did do a portion of the work and then promised that we would finish the other portion in a few years' time. And I guess it's not ideal if we don't fulfill our promises.
37k brought forward from Tier 2, correct. And then, so just the final couple of points under this, on page 2079, submitter 336, and point 7 in the middle there, requesting that a Kinloch community sports field be established in partnership with the proposed Hillary Outdoors Centre. So page 2079, and it's the point 336.7.
I think I can update you on that. When I spoke to John O. Maxwell a couple of weeks ago, my understanding is that a sporting facility that the community could use at the Hillary Outdoor Centre is off the books now because of the design requirements they need for the outdoor centre. I can't remember the specifics, but they needed the area for some of their biodiversity programs, so they can't do the sports field there. But they've made a commitment to come and speak to the Kinloch community about how they can work together, and there are some other ideas. So I wouldn't go promising that directly, because I don't believe that will be the case. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we did speak to them not so recently, but that's why we tried to leave it deliberately vague. At that point, they thought it might be an option, but we didn't want to commit the Hillary Centre to something which is a council. So so do you feel the answer's gone too far, or would you like to pull it back a little bit?
And so the final point there, 336.8, regarding a public toilet, and specifically at the eastern end, at the end of Eastern Beach in Kinloch, similar to the one in the submitter states that it should be similar to the one located in Kawakawa Bay. And there's obviously staff response there. This point did come up a couple of times. It's also within the, when we get to it, probably tomorrow, is the district toilets. It's also contained in there a couple of times as well.
The response is fairly self-explanatory.
So that concludes.
Oh,
that.
just one thing.
Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know whether spelling mistakes, you want those picked up that are in your responses?
They will be before they go into letters.
Okay, just
correct?
checking,
Yeah.
Yeah, page 310.
Before they go into letters, they will be. Cool. Sitting. I'll have a look at their submission to see where it's sitting. Yeah. Yeah, I'll have a look. I'll have a quick look. Yeah, I'll just have a quick look. I don't know if you want to move on to sports ground. I can have a look and come back to you on that one. So if you move on to sports grounds, which is on page 2000. So that that point that submitter made was made by a number of submitters from Tūrangi. So that response there is covered a number of times throughout this this section, which we just refer back to. Temporary facility down in Tūrangi, not far away. So the second point there, 34.5, is similar in that there were a lot of people stating that. So there's again that response that's there from staff is across all of those submissions.
So, Mr. Chairman, could I just ask the options that the staff are looking at, that'll be coming before the next annual plan, would that be right? staff response. 34.5.
Yeah, so the submission stated around that a feasibility study be undertaken to determine the viability of constructing a forecourt multi-purpose sports and events centre and to make funding available for its construction in years 2 and 3. So year 1 be the viability or the feasibility study, and years 2 and 3 be the construction, was what was requested in the submissions.
Mm.
Thank you, Worship. Again, it's just restating the obvious, but standard response here. But again, it's just articulating the fact that in the past this community hasn't been clear about what its thinking is around its future, and so whilst this may seem like a rather large idea, I think you've got to look at the reason why it's come here, because if we look at our current gym as being the facility to have provided for this for the last however long, it's been in various forms of sort of condition, and so that doesn't leave a lot to be desired. So I think this is a clear articulation of the fact that elevating the state of some of our resident or our facilities in town is fairly important. Now, whether it comes in the context of this or anything else, I think it's just just being really clear about that. So I think there is some value. We've talked about it as a community before. Does it look like what's being talked here? I don't know, but I'm sure a feasibility study will certainly provide for that. So I'm certainly supportive of the fact that we need to paint some sort of a picture and at least have some sort of an informed view on where we go with these things.
And I'd just like to say that the current gym we've got does need, if anything happened, it does need a lot of work. So whether that's the option or whether it's to look at something different, we need to actually look at something, either that one or something different, because sport is really important in Turangi, and our kids and our other people in Turangi, the adults even, are very good sports people. So a facility they can use is needed. Whether it's to what extent, I don't know. I don't do sport, so I watch. So I don't know what you need when you're doing it. But I know that our gym isn't up to a standard that it needs to be. But whether doing that or something different is something. But we need to look at something.
Sure, but I think one thing that I got out of the submissions that day in Turangi was just a sense of urgency. We keep talking about doing reports and feasibility studies, and more time and water goes underneath the bridge. So, sure, but let's be sensitive to trying to get some sort of action or decision. I mean, sometimes not delaying things rather than making a decision, no matter how popular or unpopular it's going to be, is actually worse. So I think we just need to get moving, and I understand we did do a community facilities review in 2014 or something for Turangi, so let's pull it back out and get some traction on what it is we are going to do.
There was a facilities review which was more about the existing state, which was pretty poor, but we have anticipated that courts will be included as part of our sports and recreation strategy, which is hopefully we plan to finish by the end of the year.
So we've started that, and we'll get something out within the next 12 months, and that will give some direction on the district and its sports grounds and facilities on what is the need in that space. And if there's a feasibility study required off the back end of that, we could look at it then. No, it's a
Yeah. Yeah, it's more of a, yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah. So it will be more of a, sorry. Yeah. Yeah, a needs assessment with some recommendations, and then the next step, obviously.
So just to clarify though, you're not going to put in our response that an event centre of this request is actually bigger than what we've currently got, because that sort of says we're predetermined already, and that's not what we're going to put in the response, is it?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna mention the point about that when we had that facilities review a few years ago, and just probably picking up on what Nathan said. I mean, I mean, the report didn't it didn't have any anything that was really worth cheering about. I mean, everything in there said that it was puckaroo, broken, gonna be broken, needs to be demolished. So just coming back to Roseanne's point, there is a sense of urgency, because a lot of the facilities, other than the ones that we've just recently done up, which are sort of for want of the better term, sort of cosmetic and strengthening and stuff, the rest of the facilities are still continuing to trend downwards. So sense of urgency is certainly welcome from me.
Question. So the work that you're going to do, this feasibility study, but under a sports banner, is that also going to include looking at it through an events lens as well, or is it just going to be sporting? Because if Turangi is looking for an event centre, perhaps, and I'm not saying perhaps, it's prudent to combine the two. Yeah, but so I'm just saying, the study that they're doing, are they only looking sports, or they can
we've
make
included
it wider?
in our initial group. Is it Sinead or Gemma? Sorry, from the events team, because a lot of our recreation spaces double up as event spaces, so we've definitely included that aspect.
Yeah, we'll say it'll be incorporated in looking at the sports ground and facility strategy that we're working on. And we'll finish that within this calendar year. So we'll be back to you guys with some workshops on this stuff.
Through this year. Obviously, it's great. I mean, it's a big aspirational and a vision. But I think as you go to the feasibility study, it has to be a touch of reality as well in terms of actually what the outcomes there could be when you're competing with other venues and etc. So something needs to be done, obviously, to provide adequate good facilities, but I think we have to be in the real world too. Yeah.
So through the chair, that's the main reason why we're writing this strategy, is to provide the guidance and to put our efforts into the things that really matter to us. Because at the moment we've done the Vegemite thing, we've done a spreader pretty thin, and things are falling apart. So we're not wanting to stay in this predicament.
And also part of it will be coming back to you with not necessarily a recommendation, but asking you where you think the sweet spot is for Taupo, and what level our facilities should be at, and what we want to achieve and attract and provide. So you'll get hopefully you'll get a big say in what the level of service that we anticipate is.
So the next point is submitter 123.2 on page 2018. It's regarding both lights and some form of netting or caging around the basketball courts down in Turangi. And this point came through in quite a few submissions as well.
this was, a lot of this was from the children, the rangatahi in Turangi, and the place they're talking about is constantly used. It's someone's always playing on it, and it is in a terrible state, so it definitely does need something doing to it.
Sorry, Nathan. Just help me with that. Did that open spaces upgrade or the playground upgrade or whichever upgrade we were talking about, was that including relocating that basketball court?
Yeah, it was. Well, personally, it was quite encouraging to see all these submissions, and a lot of what they asked for is what we thought would be a good solution, and what we've come through our processes as well. So definitely that budget did include moving the basketball court to a more accessible, more visible, safer area. The lighting is slightly problematic in some instances, and that it encourages use outside of hours where you would really like people to be there. But there are options to deal with that in terms of design or duration of the lights being on. So yeah, definitely is something that we have been looking at and will continue to look at, and we'll, through part of the process, we'll definitely talk to all these submitters about what they'd like to see in the final design. Yeah, and there's quite a bit of infrastructure to go on the ground, and then of course there's renewals on top of that. It's not just the capital expenditure, so yeah, it'll be a good discussion to have.
The next point is page 2021, and it's from Taupo League Club, requesting some assistance with facilities.
Yep, you're right. Barry's right. Yeah. They've never been quite happy with it though, and also, and there was the bigger conversation about where the long term is for league, of course. You know, yeah. Oh, have they? Okay.
I believe they have access to the hockey change rooms as well if they give them a contribution. So hockey's got the big facility up there as well, and I believe that the league can use those facilities for a price. Well, yeah, we anticipate it'll help us make these decisions in the future. At the moment it's been pretty ad hoc, and we've been relying on the clubs to give us information themselves, and while with the greatest respect to the clubs, they do look out for their own sport. We need an independent, holistic view of all of our facilities and what we do need. I hate to say it, but what we don't need, what can be combined, you know. So yeah, it does seem like an easy answer, but in a couple of years, once we have the strategy, it will give us some definitive guidance.
So there's just one final one to note in this. It's on page 2024, and it's the resurfacing of the velodrome. Submitter 153.1, and there were a few requests around this. So as you'll see in the staff response, approximately 170,000 was set aside in the renewals budget, but the current estimated cost is approximately 350,000 for suitable works.
There's only been some minor works done on the velodrome over the last probably few years. I probably look at this like the Taupo Bowling Club. It's their surface that they use, and it's a council asset. It was handed over to the council from the cycling club, I believe. And the cycle challenge around the lake, that's what started the development of the velodrome. All the funds to develop the velodrome came from the cycle challenge. Then it got too big and the cycle club handed it over to council.
Through the chair, Your Worship, the 170 was for the resurfacing. When we started doing some investigating, because of the shape of the velodrome, it's got a whole lot of lights around the outside of it. You couldn't do the resurfacing without taking the lights down. The lights are old, and if you take the lights down, you can't necessarily put them back up again. So it ended up being do the thing once and do it right. Yeah, 170 is.
Is that next year or this year?
170 was this year, this current financial year. Yes, that's right.
Probably the reason why the lights are now a bit old, they're recycled lights from, I think it was Tongariro Street, I'm not sure, when they put new lights in Tongariro Street. And we recycled them around the velodrome.
Through the chair, if you've got 170 in the current year, that's going to be the bow wave, so it's only 180 you need to add into year one.
So that was the last one for sports grounds. Just returning to your point, Barry, it is there, the request for the land out in Kinloch. Page 2150. Oh. No, sorry, it is sitting in transport. Yep. So page 2150 if you want to have a look at that. So things remaining are animal control, which should be pretty quick, the cultural precinct project, community halls, development contributions, both of those are not too big. Libraries, there's no decisions required. There is the question that's come across a few different areas, but it's around the Airbnb book a batch rating, which will be a discussion under finance. Emergency management, no decisions required. There's obviously the improving traffic flow through Taupo CBD, which will be up first. Yep, I believe first, yes. And then Taupo Airport upgrade, no decisions required because all the submitters supported what's in the plan currently. And that's it. So most of those actually don't require the same level of decisions as we had today. The bulk of it is done. Obviously, other than traffic, but yes, the remainder